with the first pick in the NFL draft.
Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag NFL Draft Countdown. Today we are back with the running backs. We will give you our top 10 running backs going into this year's draft. Adam, we've already done quarterbacks. It was great fun. We're on to the running backs. For me this year, there's no real blue chip, standout, incredible running backs, but there's some really, really nice prospects. And some guys that could really, in committee backs or different scheme backs, could be really, really interesting if they land at the right team. How are you feeling about the running backs this year?
Yeah, there are some nice guys out there. They look decent. I have to say, I think the problem is last year as well, because we had Bijan and we had Jahmyr Gibbs. There was a lot of excitement about both of them guys. This year, there is no Bijan. There is no Jahmyr Gibbs. And I know that there's a lot of people coming out saying that you won't see a first-round running back this year. And I agree. I don't think you will see a first-round running back. I'm not 100% sure you're going to see a second-round running back, to be honest. I think given the way that it's changed a bit in the NFL and the way teams treat it, I just don't think they're going to go for that position with these guys. As you said, there's some that are going to be really good for certain teams, and I wouldn't put you off quite a few of these guys. I think they're definitely worth looking at, and you're going to want them in your team. But there's no, as you said, standout blue chip, amazing player. So yeah, it's we'll save that for the wide receiver one.
Yeah, looking forward to the wide receivers because it is stacked this year with wide receivers. That's why there's going to be no running backs in round 2, because there's just going to be more and more wide receivers. Adam, we've said in the previous that long gone are the days where you just have a bell cow back and they just do absolutely everything, and you don't need a backup running back. And lots of things are committee. So let's jump into this. And like I say, they're going to find a home in the committee back. They'd be really, really good for it. So first up, we have Will Shipley, 5'9", 209 pounds from Clemson. His 2023 stats were 167 carries, 827 yards, 5 touchdowns. Before I jump into the strengths and weaknesses, Adam, what do you feel about Will Shipley? Are you in on him? Are you out on him? Where's it stand? I know he had a big 2021 and there was a lot of high hopes, but 2022 was his big year, wasn't it? So
yeah. 2022 was his big year. He went over 1,000 yards in that year. Had 15 touchdowns. This year it's been a bit quieter on both yards and touchdowns, but he's still played in 12 games. He's actually been pretty steady. If you look at the sort of like the grading that PFF give him, he's not a bad running back. He's sort of in the mid 70s, which is okay. It's not awful. It's a decent grade. For me, the thing that I felt was really obvious from watching some of the tape on him is that he just makes guys miss. He's got that agility and that quick feet to get out of the way. The cuts are great. It's like he's one of them that's going to break ankles. You're going to see that highlight of him at some point in the NFL where he's going to do that. He's not the quickest, but he's definitely he has that agility that just makes him able to get past defenders quite easily. He kind of like in that respect, and I'm not saying he is, because he's not, but he kind of is like a poor man's Christian McCaffrey in that respect, who has that ability to just sort of jink into the spaces and do that. I thought he was a decent running back. I just don't think he's anything particularly special. I think he'll do okay. Like you say, as we were saying about these guys, if they get into the right team, they're gonna do well. And if he can get into a team that needs multiple running backs and someone who is not the big guy who's going to make all the the sort of like pounding plays through the O-line, but the guy who can get through, then I think you'll find that he'll be all right. So yeah, I think I can see him having an NFL career. I just don't think he's going to be doing anything amazing.
Yeah, there was a lot of hopes on him this year, really shining and pushing on and growing from the good season he had last year. But yeah, as you say, like I really love the quick feet, stop, start, speed, and vision. That I think they're really underestimated things when you look in running backs. I think when especially people who are watching it from the sofa and enjoying a bit of football, they like to see that big downhill back that's running into players and then breaking through and getting the yardage and using their speed after that. So I think his qualities of the fact that he's patient and he reads the field, he's got a good IQ, and like you say, that when he's cutting and things like that, it just looks really, really good. Yeah, it's just that he's not elite at anything, is he? He's just good, which is why I think we're seeing him at number 10 on the list.
Yeah.
We move on to number 9, which is your boy. It's your boy, Ray Davis from Kentucky, 5'8", 214 pounds. He had 199 carries, 1,129 yards, 14 touchdowns. You really pushed for me to get him on this list. I was unsure whether he'd make my top 10. But Adam, take it away. Why do you love Ray Davis so much?
I think the thing with Ray Davis is that, first of all, you've got the story with him. Obviously, a lot of people know that he, he's not had the greatest life so far. So the fact that he's managed to get to where he's got to has been quite an achievement. And this guy is a capable running back. I will always caveat the fact that I do believe Kentucky had a really good O-line this year, and that has made a big difference for him. That's the reason that he's been able to get them 14 touchdowns and have the yards that he has. He's been a very, very solid running back. We were talking about Shipley and his PFF grades being in the mid-70s. Well, this year Ray Davis was 87.9. You know, this is a guy who is capable of doing both sides of the running game as well. He's got great vision. Love that he can see the gaps really easy. Brilliant balance, can literally just turn on a dime and go through. And this guy has serious yak ability. You know, he in the passing game, he will run. He can go, and he is definitely someone that is going to do well if he's given a chance. I do feel that there might be a few teams not particularly interested, partly because of his age. He is going to be 23, which is, you know, you're seeing running backs coming out at 20, 21. I know it's not old, but it's just, I think teams will worry about that a little bit. I also think that he's a little bit small. You know, at 5'8", that'll put teams off as well. But I just thought it's a guy who, you know, the last 2 seasons in Kentucky, he's had nearly 40 targets in the receiving game. He can do everything in the rushing game. He's got the ability to do everything that he needs to do as a running back, but he does have some negatives that I think are probably, you won't see the negatives on tape. It's more the sort of the age, who he's played against is another thing. Obviously, it's not the best teams that he's gone up against. So that is another thing that NFL teams will probably say against him. But based on what I've seen, you can't really ask for much more from him.
Yeah, I think at 5'8" as well, to have in there as one of your strengths that you're a good blocker. I think that's a really, really key thing that's really going to carry him maybe a little bit more weight in the draft, because a lot of the times when you've got a smaller back, like twitchier back, they tend to take them out on plays that they need to block and bring in a bigger guy. But the fact that he can do that, and he's shown that he can do that, I think that's really going to help him going forward. As you say, I put playmaking in there. I think you give it a slightly different name, but at any point he's got chance to pop off and do that one big play. And I think big playmaking ability is really key when you're a running back. Just to be able to have that in your locker and be able to break away, I think it's really, really good. Again, I said size. I think it is going to come down to that a little bit, and it is going to hinder him. And as we said, his production against the bigger schools, when you look at this year and last year, you know, he only managed 59 yards against Georgia, 42 against Tennessee, 26 against Alabama. you know, his big games. I know he had a big game against Missouri, which is obviously a good, decent team, but they came more against your smaller schools was when he really shone, which that's not gonna carry much weight when you're being evaluated. Really, you've got to have some big games against these ranked schools. I think probably his best one. Well, I wouldn't really say that Florida were really that ranked this year. They finished in 22nd, but he did have a good game against them. And maybe that's worth watching the tape back on that game, because I think he had an absolute stormer against the Gators. So yeah, maybe go back, rewatch that one, see what we can find. But yeah, a nice piece, nice story, and fingers crossed for him. Hopefully he gets drafted.
I do think there's a very strong chance that he goes undrafted. I have to say, I think he might. But and the other thing is I do feel like it's the reason that we've got him in the top 10 is because of the class and what they are like. So I think that's another reason as well. But there is just something quite infectious about the way he plays, and that you want him to do well given everything that's happened. But yeah, that's I don't think he's going to be amazing, let's put it that way.
At number 8, we have Donovan Edwards from Michigan, 6'1", 209 pounds, had 113 carries, 393 yards, 3 touchdowns. Obviously, last year we had Bijan and Roschon in our top 10, 2 guys from the same college. We're now seeing that a lot of the colleges now having dual backs. I think we'll maybe talk about Texas later with CJ Baxter, who I really, really like for the following year. But there seems to be a bit more of a common theme. Not been utilized as much this year as he was the previous year, but a lot of hype about this guy. A lot of people have got him a lot higher on their lists as well. I know you were a bit confused at why he was so high on some lists, but we've got him in at 8, and I think that's the right spot for him.
Yeah, I haven't seen a great deal of him. I suppose I wasn't really watching much of it the year before, so I haven't seen tons of him. From what I have seen of this year's tape and what he's done, he looks like he's got great vision. His balance is very good. He's very explosive. That was the one thing that I sort of saw. He will just fly past defenders quite easily. I wouldn't say that his speed is amazing when it comes to like long runs, but I do think he has that explosiveness at the beginning to get through the line. So I think that he's very good in that respect. The one thing that I kind of feel like I'm a little bit confused when it comes to this guy is that he seemed to be so favoured in 2022. He had nearly 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns in that year. It seemed to disappear this year. It seemed like the production disappeared. Now, a lot of that, I'm guessing, as we've said before, Blake Corum coming in for Michigan is the reason behind that, which kind of is a little bit of a worry, because it kind of feels like he basically lost the job a little bit, or at least the starter, and that's the concern I feel with him, is that, you know, as we've said, and we're probably going to keep saying, none of these running backs are amazing. To lose that job then to someone who we're not saying is an amazing guy is a little bit of a concern and a bit of a red flag when it comes to him. Other than that, I like I say, from the tape, I thought he looked like a decent running back, and he showed that he's more than capable. It's just that it's more the idea that you've basically gone from, you know, 991 yards in 2022 to not even 400 in 2023, and it just kind of feels like it all kind of slipped away a little bit for him this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think Blake Corum in 2022 was still the main guy back. I think Blake Corum probably out carried him by another 100 carries, I think, on top of that. So Blake Corum's really been the guy there. He's been there for 4 years and really elevated himself. He got the touchdowns, got the carries, got the yards as well. I just think 2022 they Michigan ran the ball a hell of a lot. JJ McCarthy was not leaned on as much as he's been this year, and I think they let JJ McCarthy really show what he can do a bit more, and definitely used him more earlier on in the year. So I think that's why he's kind of lost a few of the snaps and the carries. But again, when we're looking at these bottom guys, it seems to be, when we're looking at the strengths, it seems to be those things. vision, blocking, quick feet. They're very intellectual guys. They're very good at reading the game. And I think it is key to have a guy in your team that's good at blocking. And if they do need to be used, know where to cut and where to go. I think his workload is what's going to, his workload and the fact that he has been a committee back is what's going to hinder him going into the draft, which is why I put him in at 8. You'll see on a lot of lists, he's people's number sort of 5, 6. So be interesting. We move on.
Yeah, it's a strange one. It is it does feel like a strange one. Like I say, that I'm not sure if it's funny because you say about the committee bat, and we'll talk about Blake Corum later. But it's kind of almost like one thing that goes against Blake Corum is that he's been overused. So it is funny how it sort of like goes about either way. But yeah, I just feel like that he's not quite. I don't know. It's just a bit, to me, that's a bit of a red flag to not be doing quite as much as what you were the year before. It's just a bit like, why and what's happened there.
We move on to number 7. Now, this is a guy I am a huge fan of. I think he was massively underutilized at USC this year. It's Marshawn Lloyd, 5'8", 209 pounds, 116 carries, 820 yards, 9 touchdowns. I think it's also key to point out, if I just bring this up, I think he, bear with me, I think he might have led the league. He definitely led the Pac-12, I think, in yards per carry. I think he was averaging over 7 yards per carry. I cannot understand why they didn't give him the ball more. Adam, I think there was a couple of games I asked you to keep your eye on him and watch him and stuff like that. Did you manage to get much on him?
So he looks like a very, potentially a very good running back for the NFL. Great burst vision, again, same sort of thing. He just has that about him. I thought he was very agile. That was something that was good. He seems to have improved every year, so that's always a good sign that he's done that. He's got better with each year. His yards per attempt was 7.1, which was leading the league. I can only assume the reason he didn't get used as much was because Caleb Williams was just too busy running around like a crazy man. But yeah, he looks really good. Strong runner, as you've put, good in the blocking. Few issues I had with him. It's really difficult. I put not great in the receiving game, but I don't think he was used enough in the receiving game, to be honest. And that was the problem. He didn't get the targets much for that. And he's had some handling issues from what I could see. It seems like catching the ball is not necessarily his strength, bless him. So that is something that he needs to improve on. But yeah, very good running back. As I said, for me it was the agility and the burst through the line, which I thought was very good. And like you say, yards per attempt. I mean, if you're hitting over 7, I mean that's insane. So I mean, if you can come into the NFL and you can do, I don't know, even if you do say like 4.5, 5, I mean that's a hell of a running back to have. So yeah, I mean he looks like he has a lot of potential.
Yeah, I mean he transferred from South Carolina to USC for the 2023 season. I thought I put strong runner. I think he is a very, very strong runner, but he does tend to just get the ball and then go, right, I'm going to do what I want to do. I thought his decision making at the line of scrimmage wasn't polished enough, but he's a young guy. He's not had as many carries as some of the other guys we've even spoke about. And I felt like his catching really improved. I thought it improved this year. I thought that was really, really good point that it improved. I just felt like once he got the ball, he didn't do loads with it when he was catching, which is why I put after the catchability was a bit of a weakness. He sort of caught it and then went, that's it, I've caught it. But I'd expect a bit more from a running back, but really, really like him. I think you're going to get him. Well, I think he should be available around sort of round 5, 6. And I know that I've got him on my radar for the Giants. I think he'd be a great compliment for Saquon if he's with us. So I really like this guy, and I think a lot of teams should keep an eye on him. Really, really good runner. And as soon as he's with the NFL coaches and running back coaches, I think they're going to polish him, and he's going to be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I think with a lot of these guys, we're going to be saying the same thing. I think with a bit of coaching, they could be very decent, and he's definitely one of them who has the potential to improve significantly, I think.
On to number 6. It's a lot of people's favorite. It's Bucky Irvin. It's been very, very fun to watch all year. 5'8", 194 pounds, 186 carries, 1,180 yards, 11 touchdowns. Adam, he is fun to watch. The Oregon Ducks have been fun to watch all year, and he's been a big part of that. Surely you've seen him, and you've got loads of points to point out for us.
Yeah, so this guy, he's a lot more receiving when it comes to the running back. He's much more involved in the passing game. He has that about him. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Chan, a little bit. Kind of got a bit of Gibbs in him as well. Maybe not quite as good, but around that sort of thing. The really good thing with him is that he's just as capable as being a running back as he is being in the passing game. So that's what it was really useful for him. I thought that he had great bursts through the line. I thought he looked really shifty, which is exactly what you want from that receiving type of running back. And that basically he's got all the makings of an NFL running back that you need in order to be a success, other than the fact that he is a bit small, and this is the major problem for him. You know, you've got him at 5'8". It's probably what he's going to come out as. That's the issue, isn't it? It's like he's not going to be able to sort of be a bruiser all the time. He's good, but then that's not what his game's going to be. It's going to be kind of like that, like I say, that Devon Chan sort of guy who can just sort of slip through, see the holes, see the gaps, get through them quickly. He has the speed to do that. He has the burst to do that. So I think because of that, he will do really well. Again, I mean, his PFF grade is a little bit lower for 23 than it was 22, but to be honest, both of them have been very good years. So the fact that he's shown that he's in the high 80s, which is what you want to see. Yeah, he looks like if he's used right, he could be very, very good. And I think, you know, I mean, obviously, we talk about a Chan, or I mentioned him, and sort of like if he had someone like Mike McDaniel, then that would be ideal for him.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of other guys that standing at 5'8", and I don't think that's overly short for a running back massively. I think it's the weight for me and the frame size of him. I think he's very small. I just worry that going into the NFL and coming up against some of the edge rushers and even linebackers and D linemen in the league, I worry that he'll get hurt. I think Oregon have done a very good job of running up plays and schemes that really prevent him from getting those big hits. And they've had a great O-line and a great quarterback all year. But he's improved every single year, both in the running game and the receiving game. I think that's a massive tick for him. He's very patient. As we've said, he can work both of them well. His vision's very, very good. He reads the field well. I think someone's going to take a punt on him. I think he's definitely worth a big punt. He'd be so, imagine if he was heavier and maybe slightly taller, he'd be towards the top of this list, I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you were talking about someone who was 5'11" and 205, I think, you know, you'd be looking at him going, yeah, this guy can do everything, sort of thing. So yeah, he's definitely one that is worth getting involved in. Like, and as you've put it as a weakness scheme. It is, unfortunately, I think that is just what a lot of these running backs are now. They are getting a bit smaller and they're not quite as big as what they used to be. So I think that's just what it is. It's, you know, he's got to go to the right team. If he goes to the right team, he could be very, very successful.
We move on to our top 5 now. And in at number 5, we have Braylon Allen, 6'2", 245 pounds. He had 181 carries, 984 yards, 12 touchdowns. Now, this was a guy back in, we go back to I think I was trying. I've got that. We could have the graphic after 2021, and I watched him in 2021. I was buzzing about this guy. Thought he was incredible, and then for 2022, I had him on my top 5 running backs in college to watch for 2022. He had another great season, but this season just hasn't really. Something's happened with him this season. There, I'm not sure whether it's behind the scenes or not, because he was on about transferring. Going into the transfer portal and not going into the draft this year, and we were holding off on this one before he made his decision. So I think something's happened at Wisconsin for him that's not settled right, and he wanted another year to show that he is elite. Because I've got him in at 5 based off of the year that he's had, but I was real high on this guy of being potentially a blue chip running back. When you look at the strengths that he carries there and his size, that's everything you really want from a back. Adam, do you agree with that?
Yeah, so this guy, like you say, it's a strange what's happened with him. If you just purely looking from the numbers, he's clearly was used a lot in 2022, like probably more than what he should have been, to be honest. And then what happened in this year was that the attempts that he had kind of went back to what it was in 2021. It's just that for whatever reason, the yards and the touchdowns didn't, or the touchdowns were the same, but the yards just didn't sort of like match up. So it feels like it's a weird one where it's kind of like, it looks like he's regressed over his college career, which is slightly strange going into the draft. But yeah, the things that I noticed about him, the size, just the sheer size of him, the power that he possesses is just amazing. I feel like out of all of them, this is the workpost. This is the guy who could definitely go 3 downs and do everything. At 245 pounds, that's a hell of a running back coming at you. So, and weaknesses that I found, I don't feel like his speed is amazing, but then what do you expect given his weight? He's not really a receiving back. That's not really something that he gets involved with too much. So he does a bit, but not loads. For me, the Titans just seemed the replacement for Derrick Henry. It just seemed like an obvious place to go. And, obviously I'm not saying he's going to be Derrick Henry, but given that Henry is getting to the age he's at now, it feels like an obvious need for them and an obvious kind of guy for Vrabel, who loves that kind of running back. So I think he's potentially very good, and I think that he's going to drop a little bit further than what he probably should because of the poor year this year.
Yeah, and whatever happened at the end of the year, I'll need to do a bit more research into that. I think when we come off of here, I'll have a look at what the rumors were behind him wanting to go into the transfer portal and leave Wisconsin, and see if there was anything behavioral or something that happened. But yeah, I think when you're that size and you're listing strength, like power, yards after contact, I thought his speed was good for his size. I thought he was quick.
For his size, he is.
Yeah,
for his size, it's just that he's not quick compared to the other guys. That's all. He's
absolutely fantastic. I think there's going to be a lot of people going back and looking at the tape, and there's loads of tape to watch here. And even if you look at this year, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He had 5 games with over 100 yards. I think there was 1, 2. There was 3 of them 3 games also that were close to it, like in the 90s, 80s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the 11 games with touchdowns. He ticks all the right boxes for me. I think he's a really interesting piece, and I think if he shows up at the combine as well, it could be really, really interesting.
Yeah,
he might move up boards quite well. Really interested in him. Weaknesses. I didn't really talk about weaknesses. You spoke about them. You said receiving. I thought his route running was pretty poor. I think that's probably why he's not in with the season. I don't feel like he's done enough
though. To be honest, I don't think he was asked to do enough as well. So it's difficult to really complain about it when you're not really doing it. So
yeah. And the only other thing I could find was he's a bit of a tall runner. He stands to stand up straight when he's running. Could be a weakness, but again, we've said numerous times. We've already said it a few times now. Get him in the NFL with the NFL coach, especially the Titans. You know, then they'll sort him out a treat. At number 4, we have Blake Corum. We've already spoke about him. Blake Corum, 5'7", 222 pounds, 237 carries, 1,111 yards, 25 touchdowns, vying for the national championship as well. Could be a champion to his locker as well. Now, this guy has impressed me so much while he's been at Michigan. I hate to say that because I hate Michigan, but I thought he's been really, really impressive. Even after his breakout year in 2021, I watched that and everyone was like, yeah, this guy's going to be absolutely fantastic. Buzzing about him. I was like, oh, he seems really, really small. I'm not sure. I think he's just a good college running back. Very worried about him, but he proved me wrong 2022. I think he's proved me wrong in 2023 as well. Adam, are you excited about this guy? Do you think he's going to be good for the NFL?
Yeah, I think he'll do really well in the NFL. He's ready to go for the NFL. I think he is a bit short when it comes to the height, but he's well built. That's the thing that's the most impressive. The guy he reminds me of the most is David Montgomery. I feel like he's kind of got that. He is a little bit shorter, but he is very well built, and he's not going to have a problem when it comes to going up against defenses. I think he's got really good vision. That was something that I saw, that he can find them spaces. And his production has been amazing, really, over the last, I mean, you could say 3 years, but certainly over the last 2 years. I think he's had, this year, loads of touchdowns. Last year it was more yards, but even last year he had plenty of touchdowns. Obviously, it is kind of like he's in the right place at the right time when it comes to Michigan and the way they play. So obviously that helps bulk out his stats a little bit. The only real issues that I could sort of see, height. Obviously, he is a little bit shorter, which some of them might not like. He's been used a lot, so that is something that teams might not be particularly keen on. And I felt like his long speed wasn't so fantastic. He sort of like he struggles a little bit when he gets towards the end of big plays. But yeah, I mean, there's not much more that you could ask for. I'm a little surprised you've got him at 4. I thought he would have been a bit higher, because it is so difficult to move away from that production and what he's been able to do in the last 2 years at Michigan. But I mean, there are still some really good running backs coming up. But I think he'll do well in the NFL. And again, if he gets on the right team with the right coach, he'll be I think he'll be impressive for quite a few years.
I just worry slightly that his size will play a factor, and the fact that his protection in the passing game was not fantastic. I think when we looked at Donovan Edwards, we brought him up as good blocking. So we obviously know what the pattern was there, and I think he's going to become. Although I said he's NFL scheme ready based in Michigan, with being with Harbaugh and obviously knowing the way that NFL teams play, I think. Even the coaches that they had there from NFL as well. I think he's going to maybe become predictable in the NFL if they know that he's going to be taken out for snaps that he's going to be protecting. I think you might know where he's going with the ball. I think that's. I think I might have also had it in my head because he's at Michigan and because I was unsure about his size and stuff and his height, that maybe that would hinder him and he would move down the boards a bit. When you look at the next guys up in the top 3, they're built slightly different to him. But he did have even if you take like just the back end of the year, really super impressive against Penn State, whose defense was great. Really good against Ohio State as well, and played fantastic and was reliable in that Alabama game as well to get them to the championship. So he's done it against the big boys as well. So there's no reason why I should be nervous. Whether it can handle the production in the NFL, it's just something niggling me about him.
Sure, it's not just that you're an Ohio State fan, you know.
Well, when we look at number one, I think anybody watching this is going to be like, yeah, it's just an Ohio State fan. We move on to number 3. Another guy I think a lot of people are going to be excited about is Trey Benson from FSU. 6'1", 222 pounds, 156 carries, 905 yards, 14 touchdowns. This guy's a bit more built like a proper running back. I think that's why I've got him in the top 3, and I think there's going to be a lot of buzz about him too.
Yeah, this was the one that I I looked at him and thought this is the one. But if you really want to go for one, I think that Benson is the one to go for. The fact that he kind of ticks all the right boxes. He's got great balance, but he has the power as well. He's got the size, height, and weight wise, and he has the long speed as well. And it just kind of felt like, okay, he's kind of got everything that you want. He's very patient. That was something that I thought you put impatient as a weakness. I actually thought he was quite patient in some of the things that I saw. He's not a receiving back. I will grant you that, and he is quite upright. So I think that's potentially a problem. But to me, Benson is the one who has all the sort of the basic core things that you want from a running back, and it just kind of feels like he's had 2 years of good production for Florida State now. Yeah, so it kind of feels like he's done everything he can do. There was, plenty of touchdowns this year. Yards per attempt in the last 2 years have been really good as well. I think he's definitely got a very good chance of becoming something quite big in the NFL. I feel like this is the one who might do quite well.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about the top 3 as well, I noticed this is so hard with the wide receivers as well. It's really tough to pick out weaknesses for these guys. And I think you are nitpicking. And I just felt a little bit like once he got the ball, he didn't wait and he tend to run into the line of scrimmage. And I thought that's like seeing the hole as well and impatient. They kind of go hand in hand.
Right,
and that's just nitpicking, I think, really, because when you look at his strengths and you go blocking, that's definitely, you want that from a running back. I think it's a weakness of some of the guys in the NFL. Explosive, good after contact. That's definitely what you want from a running back, isn't it? At 6'1" and 222 pounds as well. He's ticking the boxes. He's ticking the boxes. Yeah. Good production. We take a look at they were accused this year of having the easiest schedule, but equally you've still got to do the yardage as well, haven't you, on the field, even if you've got it. I think there's been a lot of people that have had easy schedules. I think Michigan had an easy schedule as well, to be fair. So I think he's good enough to be in the NFL, and I think he will be one of the guys that's maybe slightly higher on a lot of other people's lists. I think I'm just really hot on who I've got at number 2, because I think Trey Benson's number 2 on most people's lists, isn't he?
Yeah, it does feel like he's number 2. I think the reason, probably a big reason, the guy you've got at number 2 because of the injuries, I'm going to guess, is the reason as to why Benson is up at number 2. But yeah, I just think he has all the right, but he has the potential to really do something amazing. He's got all the core attributes that you need.
We move on to number 2, and we see the guy I've got. It's Jonathan Brooks from Texas. Texas know how to produce running backs, don't they? 6 foot, 205 pounds, 187 carries, 1,139 yards, 10 touchdowns. Unfortunately, had that horrific injury towards the back end of the year. Talks are that he will be up and about and ready for combine, but won't participate, and should be ready for spring training to actually play. So he's got a good chance of, if you were interested in him, not to be put off by the injury, that he will be in with the guys before the season starts. So I think that's why I put him in at number 2. I think if I wasn't convinced by that, I might have dropped him down quite a bit further. But for me, he impressed me the most out of all the guys, because I thought CJ Baxter was going to be the guy in Texas, and Brooks kind of took that off him and led the way. Real hard runner, really quick feet, big playability. You're going to say all the same things, I'm sure. Adam, were you hot on this guy, or you still on Trey Benson?
No, I think that it's a slightly different running back. I think that he's definitely. I feel like he would have been the number 1 had he not got injured. You can see from the tape he's got great burst. He's really good yards after the catch. Brilliant in the receiving game. So that's why he's a little bit different to Benson. I feel like Benson's more of a thudder rather than whereas for this guy it's going to be more about the receiving game. The only real sort of negative I came up for him was the fact that obviously he had the injury, which is a significant injury that he's had. He reminded me a little bit of Aaron Jones, actually. That was kind of who I saw when I watched the tape of him. So I think he, as we've said with Texas, it seems to be just a running back production line that they've got going on there. And like you say, Baxter looks very good as well. I think he's going to be very, very good in the NFL. I'm not too worried about the injury. I mean, obviously, it will cause him to be maybe not quite as ready next year as everyone else. But I think in time he'll do fine, and he'll be back and be all right. To me, it's just they're slightly different running backs. That's all it is between the two of them. But yeah, I do like Jonathan Brooks. I think he'll do very well, and going to be a great receiving running back.
Yeah, I think he's. I think he's not just a receiving running back. I think he can take the load as the actual runner as well. It would be no surprise who I've got at number 1 for many people. It is Trayvon Henderson from Ohio State, 5'8", 211 pounds. This year had 156 carries for 926 yards, 11 touchdowns. Adam, it's been no secret to you that I've been hot on this guy since we got him. I was buzzing about him in 2021. I was buzzing in 2022, despite the fact he was plagued with injuries all of 2022. I don't think he was quite ready for the start of 2023, but as soon as he got back to fitness, I was back on the fact that he is definitely the closest thing you've got to blue chip in this draft for me. And I think he'll be fantastic in the NFL.
I think he'll have a good career in the NFL. I think he looks very good. I don't think I know you say closest thing to blue chip. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think personally, I think that Benson is a much stronger, bigger running back. I think Brooks definitely. I think Brooks would be the number 1 guy for most people if it wasn't for the injury. So I think he could have a better career as well. Having said all that, I do think Henderson is a great running back. He's got great speed, very shifty, can get through the lanes very nicely. He's got plenty of big plays. He has no issue when it comes to like long speed or anything like that. He's fine with that. He's happy to wait behind the O-line and get the right gap. He doesn't have an issue with that. My biggest, obviously, the injuries are the biggest problem that he's had over his career. It's not just one. He seems to pick up a few here and there. And the only good thing I thought this season was the fact that once he did come back, he didn't get injured again. That was the biggest plus that I think anyone could give him this year. He's good. He's a good running back who's going to do very well in the NFL. I just don't have him as my top guy in this. I do worry about that. I think the height will put some people off a little bit. Not a lot, but I think it might. And, you know, a guy who's had multiple injuries at that height is what I do wonder if they might go, yeah, he's just going to keep getting injured all the time. And that's obviously like a bit of an issue. But I think when he's fit, he has shown that he is more than capable. It's just about keeping him fit. And obviously that might be a bit of an issue.
Yeah, I had this guy pegged as probably the only one that could have been a first round pick in the draft, but it's just not fallen that way for him. I think if you go back and watch the tape from 2021 and see why you'll see why I'm so excited about him, because he was just incredible. And I think when we've talked about, I don't think he was ready for the start of the year. And if you take away the first 3 games of the season and you go from Notre Dame onwards, it's like 100-yard game, 162-yard game, 128-yard game, 146-yard game. I felt like I saw what I saw back in his first year. And I think because of that, I'm now back on. Yeah, you know what? I think he is the top guy for me again, because I did knock him down the list slightly before the season started, I think. So yeah, I'm still buzzing about it, but equally I am biased, as we've seen from this list. Adam, that is our running backs. I am excited to see where they all land. I have got quite a bit of a fond place for quite a few of these guys, so I'm excited to see where they go. I think, as we said at the start of the show, where they go is going to be key as well to this. We got wide receivers next.
Yeah. I think the last thing to say about the running backs, I think it kind of makes the draft more interesting as a 3-day event as well, because I think the thing is like these guys are going to be playing. You know, they will get in teams for the NFL. They are decent enough to do that. I think a lot of them will be second day ones. I don't think anyone's going first day myself. I think some of these will be second, and then they'll be into the third day. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go, and it's definitely worth having a look at them and seeing what you think. So I think that there is some good stuff out there. But yes, the wide receiver one was insane to look at the tape, I have to say.
Yeah, I think as a Giants fan, looking at the draft and knowing that we need a running back and we need a wide receiver and we need O-line, I thought that it was great that we can wait till the 5th round and really cement our going after a great wide receiver and an O-line before we have to address it and come away with one of these fantastic running backs that we've just looked at. I think it's going to be good for a lot of teams in that perspective if they can get them a lot later and don't have to go after them early. So yeah, it's going to be good. Thanks for joining us for our running backs. Hopefully you have now learned a few more of the names of the guys that will be in the draft. As I said, we've got wide receivers, tight ends, and every other position coming up with our countdowns. So keep an eye out and keep it with the